Officer Daniels smirked when 18-year-old Maya Carter calmly announced her mother served in Delta Force. Blood streaked down Maya's wrists where the cuffs bit into her skin, every second caught on the mall's cameras. Then the sliding glass doors parted, and Colonel Rebecca Carter walked in, dressed like a civilian, but radiating lethal authority. That was the moment Daniels would regret for decades. Before I dive deeper into this jaw-dropping scene, where are you tuning in from today? Drop your city in the comments. If you believe in justice finally being served, hit that like button and subscribe. Now imagine being humiliated in public for a crime you never committed. What would you do if someone mocked your family's achievements? Let's rewind to what led up to Colonel Carter's arrival that changed everything. The Saturday afternoon had started out perfectly normal for Maya Johnson, a sharp 18-year-old with big dreams. Her NASA hoodie fit snug against her athletic frame as she adjusted her curly puff of natural hair, mentally reviewing the requirements of her advanced biology project. Known as her school's top student, Maya aimed to pursue a career in medical research. She needed specialized electronic components for her project on renewable energy, which is why she'd come to TechSphere, a sleek electronics shop tucked between high-end clothing boutiques inside the sprawling Northside Mall near Atlanta. Focused on her list, Maya didn't notice the suspicious glare from the sales clerk, trailing her every step. The middle-aged man, balding with a permanent scowl, hovered near her aisle, rearranging items she never touched and asking repeatedly whether she was really buying anything. Patiently, Maya explained her project each time, even showing her detailed list and school ID, but his doubt never softened. She had nearly gathered all her supplies when a commotion erupted near the smartphone display. A stylish white woman with highlighted hair and a glittering handbag rummaged through her purse, panic painted across her face. "My phone's missing!" Lindsay Harper cried, her voice slicing through the background music. "My brand new iPhone, it cost me $2,000. Her manicured finger swung toward Maya. She's been creeping around here for half an hour. She took it." The accusation hit the air like a bomb just as the store manager, Philip Harding, appeared beside Lindsay. Without asking a single question, Harding nodded sympathetically. "Don't worry, ma'am. We'll take care of it." Almost instantly, two security guards closed in. Jake Miller, a broad-shouldered white man with a buzz cut, latched onto Maya's right arm while his partner, Owen Clark, gripped her left. Their hands were rough, tightening painfully as Maya tried to reason with them. "This is a mistake," she said firmly, though her chest tightened with fear. "I didn't take anything." "Please check my bag. It's just my project supplies." Her calm tone didn't matter. The guards ignored her, speaking as if she weren't even present. "Got another shoplifter trying to jack electronics," Jake muttered into his radio. As they dragged her out, Maya felt dozens of strangers' stares, the humiliation heavier than their grip. Within minutes, they shoved her into a cramped security office. Officer Mark Daniels of the Atlanta Police arrived, striding in with his hand resting casually on his holstered gun. His cold blue eyes swept the room, barely landing on Maya. "What's the story?" he asked Harding. The manager puffed up, caught her stealing a customer's iPhone. "High-end model, worth $2,000, Maya steadied her breathing. "Sir, I didn't steal anything. I'm an honor student at Riverside High. I'm here buying parts for my project. You can call my science teacher, mister." Lee, he'll confirm Daniels, barely spared her a glance. "Yeah, I've heard that excuse before." "Empty your pockets and bag." Maya carefully complied, setting her belongings on the desk. Daniels dumped them out roughly, scattering components, notebooks, and personal items. Her wallet fell open, showing her student ID and a certificate for perfect attendance. None of it mattered. Daniels rifled through the pile with obvious contempt. "Where'd you stash the phone?" he barked. "I didn't take any phone," Maya replied, her voice steady the way her grandmother taught her. "Never let them see you break." "Check the cameras," Lindsay Harper snorted. "She's got an accomplice." "They always do." The racist undertone hung heavy, but Daniels nodded as if it made sense. Then, without warning, he snapped open his cuffs. "Until we sort this out, you're being detained." The metal bit deep into Maya's wrists, so tight they drew blood. She winced. "These are too tight," she said softly. "They're cutting me." Daniels ignored her. Around them, mall staff and guards watched silently as a straight-A student with no record was cuffed like a hardened criminal. Maya drew in a deep breath. "I'd like to call my mother." Daniels raised an eyebrow, smirking. "Oh, yeah? And who's your mom? Somebody important?" Sarcasm dripped from his tone. Maya met his eyes without flinching. "My mother is Colonel Rebecca Carter. She serves with U.S. Special Forces at the Pentagon." The room erupted in laughter. Daniels led the mockery. "Sure," he sneered. "And my dad's the president. Stop making up fairy tales. That won't save you." His emphasis on your family was sharp, carrying the weight of prejudice. He leaned close. "People like you always think you can talk your way out. I've been doing this 20 years. I know your type." The blatant bias left Maya silent. She didn't need to argue. His words condemned him more than anything she could say. After a long pause, Daniels shrugged. "Fine. Call her. Let's see this Colonel, mom of yours, unlocking her phone." He held it mockingly, expecting her to be exposed. With dignity, despite her bleeding wrists, Maya recited the number. At that moment, Colonel Rebecca Carter sat in a secure Pentagon briefing room, posture perfectly straight as she analyzed satellite feeds of potential threats overseas. With 20 years of service, compartmentalization was second nature, balancing global crises with precise decision-making. But when her secure phone buzzed in her pocket, instinct told her to check. Seeing Maya's name, concern flickered beneath Rebecca's calm surface. Her daughter never called during school hours unless it was serious. "Excuse me, generals," she said evenly. "Family emergency." The four stars nodded as she stepped into the hallway, voice softening instantly. "Maya, what's wrong?" The background noise told her this wasn't school. "Mom, I'm at Northside Mall," Maya said, steady but tight. "They're accusing me of stealing a phone." "I'm in the security office, handcuffed. They're laughing at me for telling them who you are." Rebecca's mind processed it like a battlefield update. Fast, sharp. "Are you hurt?" she demanded. "The cuffs are cutting my wrists," Maya admitted, "and everyone here is making assumptions because of how I look." Rebecca felt the familiar double burden she'd carried all her career, serving a nation that didn't always protect women like her or her daughter. "Stay calm," she ordered. "Give them nothing. I'll be there in 30 minutes." Ending the call, Rebecca's fury simmered under iron control. She re-entered the briefing just long enough to excuse herself. "Lieutenant Morris will continue. I have a family matter requiring immediate attention." Without waiting for replies, she moved fast, already dialing her network. First was her commanding officer, General Thomas Baker. "Sir, my daughter's being illegally detained at Northside Mall. I need emergency leave and possibly backup." Baker, who had fought alongside her in 2 combat zones, didn't hesitate. "Handle it, Colonel." "Take what you need." Next she rang Major Anthony Green, a trusted JAG attorney. "Anthony, Maya's being profiled and detained. Meet me at the mall with whatever legal muscle you've got." Then she called Captain Sofia Ramirez of the military police. "Bring a med kit. My daughter's in too tight cuffs." Changing into plain clothes that wouldn't immediately reveal her rank, Rebecca recalled other painful moments. Teachers doubting Maya's projects, store security tailing them, recruiters telling her daughter to aim lower despite her perfect GPA. Each memory stoked her controlled rage as she navigated Atlanta's midday traffic like a tactical mission. The 28-minute drive gave her time to replay lessons she'd drilled into Maya since she was 7. Keep your hands visible, speak respectfully, but know your rights. Don't make sudden moves, questions no child should face, but necessary for survival. "But Mom," Maya had once asked, "if I didn't do anything wrong, why would they stop me?" Rebecca had swallowed her pain and answered gently, "Sometimes people make mistakes out of fear. Your job is to stay safe until they're corrected." 20 minutes after that fateful call, Rebecca's car slid into the Northside Mall parking lot, strategically angled for a quick exit. She texted her team precise rendezvous points, then hit redial to her attorney. "Anthony," she said coldly, "they have my daughter in custody. I'm walking in now. I'll step in first. Give me 5 minutes before you follow," Rebecca told her team, eyes steady in the rearview mirror. "I want to see how they act when they assume I'm just another black mother." She slid her military ID into her pocket, hidden but ready. Drawing a deep breath, she centered herself the same way. She had before dozens of dangerous deployments, yet this was different. This wasn't about classified missions or foreign adversaries. This was about her daughter, Maya Carter, the bright, determined young woman who embodied everything Rebecca had sacrificed to defend. As she strode toward the mall entrance, her phone buzzed with short confirmations from trusted allies converging on the location. Colonel Rebecca Carter had led soldiers under fire, executed covert operations across hostile terrain, and faced death unflinchingly, but nothing compared to the cold fury she felt knowing her daughter was bleeding because of prejudice. The automatic doors parted and she entered with the calm intensity of a soldier entering contested ground. This injustice would not stand. Though clad in jeans, a burgundy blouse, and a sleek blazer, Rebecca carried herself with unmistakable command presence. Every step reflected the discipline of decades in uniform. Her gaze swept the mall like a tactical scan, mapping exits, cameras, choke points, and the flow of shoppers. Even the security guards at the entrance unconsciously stiffened as she passed, reacting instinctively to authority they couldn't identify. Following the signage toward the security office, she kept her pace measured, rage contained beneath discipline. The office door was shut but not locked. Without knocking, she entered, instantly taking in every detail. Maya sat cuffed to a chair, crimson streaks on her wrists. Officer Daniels loomed over her, radiating contempt. The store manager hovered nervously, while Lindsay Harper lounged in the corner, scrolling her phone. Security staff flanked the walls, their boredom dissolving into surprise as Rebecca walked in. For a beat, the room froze. Then mother and daughter locked eyes, Maya's subtle nod signaling she was holding steady despite pain and humiliation. Rebecca's voice cut the silence. "I'm Rebecca Carter, Maya's mother. Take those cuffs off her." Now Daniels barely glanced up, dripping condescension. "Ma'am, your daughter's being questioned about theft. We'll deal with the cuffs once the investigation's done." His tone suggested he expected obedience from yet another weary parent. Rebecca didn't flinch. "Officer Daniels," she said, deliberately using his name, despite his lack of badge display. "My daughter's wrists are bleeding from improper restraints. You've detained her without evidence, denied her rights, and violated departmental procedures concerning minors. You're out of line." The sharp precision in her words made Daniels finally look at her, narrowing his eyes. "And how would you know our procedures?" he challenged. Rebecca reached calmly into her pocket and placed her ID face-up on the table, every set of eyes fixed on it. Colonel Rebecca Carter, United States Army, Special Forces, Pentagon assignment, high-level clearance. Her voice was ice. "Remove the cuffs before this spirals further out of your control." The room's energy shifted. Daniels stared at the ID too long. Harding, the manager, fidgeted. Lindsay Harper suddenly focused on her manicure, avoiding everyone's gaze. Even the guards exchanged wary looks, sensing the balance of power tilting sharply. Daniels tried to hold ground, but uncertainty edged into his voice. "Flashing a military card doesn't change procedure," he muttered, though less sure. "We've got a credible claim from a solid witness." He gestured lazily at Lindsay. Rebecca's face didn't move, but her tone sharpened to a blade's edge. "And what book of procedure tells you to cuff minors without evidence?" She continued, voice steady as steel. "What manual instructs you to ignore requests for security footage or cut circulation until a teenager bleeds?" Her gaze slid to Harding. "Mr. Harding, I assume your store has a policy requiring footage review before detention. Has anyone even bothered to check it?" Harding flushed crimson. "An eyewitness is enough," he stammered, nodding toward Lindsay. Rebecca shifted her stare to the woman. And you're so certain of your accusation you'd swear to it in court, under oath, knowing perjury is a crime. Lindsay's hands trembled slightly as she clutched her shopping bag tighter. The door opened, and Major Anthony Green stepped in, JAG uniform crisp, briefcase in hand. "Colonel Carter," he nodded briskly. "I've already notified Chief Garcia of this incident. He expects an immediate update from Officer Daniels?" Daniels' complexion paled at the mention of his superior. Captain Sofia Ramirez entered moments later in full military police uniform, her bearing sharp. "Colonel, perimeter is secured. Medical support's ready." The militarized phrasing rattled the room, suggesting a wider net closing in. Rebecca acknowledged them with a nod, then turned back. "Let's restart. Officer." "Unlock the cuffs. Get medical care. Review the footage." Daniels hesitated. Major Green stepped closer, voice calm but firm. "Perhaps I wasn't clear. Chief Garcia is waiting for your call. Shall I dial him right now?" That broke Daniels' defiance. With stiff reluctance, he removed the cuffs, exposing angry red marks across Maya's wrists. Captain Ramirez immediately crouched beside Maya, opening a medical kit. She cleaned and wrapped the wounds while documenting everything on her tablet. Just then, Lindsay Harper's designer purse buzzed loudly with a familiar ringtone. Every eye swung to her as she fumbled, pulling out the missing iPhone from her own bag. Rebecca's voice sliced through the stunned silence. "Would that be your stolen phone, Ms. Harper? Or do you carry two identical models?" The store manager shifted toward the door. Lindsay stammered, "I must have overlooked it. Honest mistake. No harm done." Rebecca's tone stayed calm, but power radiated in every word. "No harm," she repeated. "My daughter is bleeding." Humiliated. "Accused in front of strangers. That's your definition of no harm?" Her voice carried through the office, leaving no room for excuses. "What do you think? Should Officer Daniels face consequences? Or was he just doing his job?" Comment below. The confrontation was far from over. What secrets would unravel about Lindsay's true motives? And how would Daniels respond once his chief arrived? Stay tuned, because the layers of discrimination here were only beginning to peel back. Meanwhile, Ramirez continued tending to Maya, the air charged with tension. Rebecca turned toward the security monitors, where footage from TechSphere played in reverse. The mall's head of security, Dennis Parker, had hurried in, sweating as he queued up the video after a pointed call from Chief Garcia. Rebecca's finger stabbed the screen. "There, stop. Roll it forward. Show that again." The clip displayed Lindsay Harper, deliberately tucking her phone into her shopping bag minutes before claiming it was missing. Green raised his own phone, recording the footage as evidence. They replayed it twice more. Lindsay glancing around nervously, planting the phone, then accusing Maya instead of the numerous closer shoppers. "Pull up her customer file," Rebecca instructed sharply. Parker complied, typing rapidly. His face paled as a list appeared. "She's filed 7 similar theft claims in 14 months, he admitted. "Every single one against shoppers of color." Green's voice finished the thought coldly. "And what happened in those cases?" Parker scrolled uneasily. "Each time, security detained the person. Police called 4 times. Charges never filed. Items always turned up later." Meanwhile, Ramirez had quietly gathered data of her own. She approached Rebecca with her tablet. "Colonel, Daniels has 12 complaints for excessive force, 9 against minorities, all dismissed without inquiry." Daniels bristled, surging forward. "That's confidential. You have no authority to access that." Ramirez's expression never shifted. "Actually, when a potential civil rights pattern emerges, interagency authority applies under the Homeland Security Cooperation Act of 2023. It was a fabrication, but delivered with such flawless conviction." Daniels faltered, uncertain. Outside the office, a crowd had gathered, drawn by rumors. Dozens filmed on phones. Some recognized Maya as the scholar who'd recently won a statewide science prize. Local news vans pulled up outside, cameras swiveling toward the commotion visible through the security office window. The story was already spilling into public view. Lindsay finally broke. "This is insane. It was just a mistake anyone could make. I'm leaving. I have an appointment." She stood quickly, but Ramirez blocked the door, polite but firm. "We'll need your formal statement, Ms. Harper. False reports are serious." Before Lindsay could argue, the door opened again. A distinguished man in full police dress uniform entered, Atlanta Police Chief Robert Garcia. His eyes swept the tense room, lingering on Daniels with cutting weight. "I've received troubling reports about an incident involving a teenager. From what I see," he said, voice hard as steel, "the reports were not exaggerated." The chief's gaze softened when it landed on Maya. "Are you okay, young lady?" Before she could answer, Lindsay Harper tried to slip through the doorway. Another officer entered with Chief Garcia, blocking her path. "Miss Harper, we have questions about similar reports at Northlake Mall and Perimeter Center." Lindsay's designer bag slipped, thudding to the floor. "This is harassment. I'm the victim." While attention swung her way, TechSphere manager Philip Harding edged toward the hall, only to meet Major Anthony Green's outstretched arm. "Mr. Harding, we'll need every theft accusation report from your store for the last 2 years." Harding went pale. "Those documents are proprietary." Green didn't blink. "Not when potential civil rights violations are involved." Through it all, Maya sat tall, despite everything. The medic who'd arrived with Chief Garcia examined her wrists, pronouncing heavy bruising, but no permanent harm. Nearby, Officer Daniels grew increasingly restless, jaw tight. Daniels' right hand drifted toward his holster more than once before he stopped himself. Finally, he snapped, "This is wildly disproportionate." "We got a complaint and followed a procedure." Chief Garcia turned slowly, stare unyielding. "Which policy authorizes cuffing a teenager so tightly she bleeds, officer?" "Which one?" The chief pressed on, leaving Daniels no space to answer. "And what policy says you can ignore immediate requests to review exonerating footage?" Garcia's eyes dropped to Daniels' chest. "Where's your body cam video?" Daniels' fingers touched the empty mount. "Technical issue." "I reported it last week," he muttered. Captain Ramirez checked her tablet, voice level. "According to today's equipment log, your camera passed inspection this morning." The 2 mall guards who'd grabbed Maya earlier, Jake Miller and Owen Clark, had been quietly watching. The younger, Miller, swallowed hard and stepped forward. "Chief, I think I should say something. Management told us to watch certain shoppers more closely," Miller said, unable to meet Maya's eyes. Harding exploded. "That's a lie. We never—" Miller pulled out his phone. "I recorded our last staff meeting because the directives bothered me." Garcia listened, frown deepening, then handed the phone to Major Green. The air tightened again when a woman in a tailored suit entered, projecting calm control. "Jennifer Haynes, General Counsel for Northside Properties," she said crisply. After surveying the scene, she turned to Rebecca. "Colonel Carter, we sincerely apologize. We'd like to propose an immediate settlement to avoid litigation." Rebecca's expression stayed cool. "Miss Haynes, this isn't about a check. It's about a culture that weaponizes suspicion and paperwork to hide it. How many families without my resources have been steamrolled here?" The lawyer's practiced smile wavered. Across the room, Maya pointed quietly toward the wall of security monitors. "Mom," Maya said, gesturing to a live feed. Everyone turned. On screen, Harding was at TechSphere's master terminal, frantically navigating the security system. Major Green was already dialing. "Security breach in TechSphere main office," he said. "Possible evidence tampering in progress." Guards hustled toward the store before Harding could finish. On the monitors, mall security intercepted Harding at the terminal, halting whatever deletion he'd attempted. Then another disturbance. A suited man swept into the office like he owned the building. "Richard Thompson, Blackwell and Price," he announced grandly. "This detention is baseless. We'll file counterclaims for harassment and defamation. Chief Garcia regarded him with calm gravity. Mr. Thompson, your wife was recorded staging evidence to frame a teenager. Choose your next words carefully. Outside, the hallway crowd had swelled, drawn by whispers, notifications, and live posts. The story was already escaping the mall, gathering speed beyond anyone's control. News vans parked near the entrance. Reporters interviewed shoppers who'd watched Maya march past in cuffs. On every screen, hashtags flashed. Hashtag Justice for Maya. Inside, Maya stayed composed at the center of the storm, her NASA T now a stark symbol of what prejudice had nearly derailed: curiosity, scholarship, a future in science. The feeds kept rotating angles, Lindsay scanning for a target, bypassing nearby white teens, then locking onto Maya. The pattern was undeniable. Still, Daniels folded his arms, unmoved. Lindsay insisted it was all an honest mix-up. Harding struggled to justify himself. The medic finished bandaging Maya's wrists, taping gauze gently. Rebecca knelt to Maya's level. "Do you want to leave now or see this through?" Maya looked around at the unmasking. How racism usually hides in policies, whispers, and plausible deniability. "I want to stay," she said, voice sure. "People like us vanish in stories like this unless we stay visible." Rebecca rose and faced the chief. "We'll be pressing charges," she said plainly. "Against Ms. Harper for filing a false report, Officer Daniels for excessive force and misconduct, and against TechSphere and Northside Properties for discriminatory practices." As if on cue, 3 new arrivals stepped in. Attorney Benjamin Harris and 2 young women. One of them gasped, pointing at Lindsay. "That's her. The lady who accused me of stealing her wallet at Perimeter last month." The other nodded, eyes flashing. "She tried it at Northlake, too." Threads that had seemed isolated now braided into a visible rope. Repeated targeting, same profile, same outcome, no charges. Daniels, boxed in by testimony and screens, grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, send additional units to Northside Mall Security Office. Situation escalating." His eyes flitted uneasily between Rebecca, the chief, and the uniformed personnel who'd transformed a routine detention into a potential career-ending scandal. Sweat beaded along his temple despite the AC. Minutes later, 3 more officers squeezed into the already packed room, hands hovering until they spotted their chief. The tension uncoiled. Confusion replaced aggression as they processed the tableau. Military uniforms beside APD brass, a medic tending an honors student, a defense attorney filming, a colleague, Daniels, standing alone, his certainty evaporating. Meanwhile, another camera feed showed Harding in TechSphere's back office hammering at a keyboard. "Erase sectors 3 through 7 for the last 2 hours, he muttered, unaware his actions were being broadcast straight into the security room. Major Green's thumbs flew across his phone, filing motions faster than Harding could click. "Emergency preservation order sent," Green announced. "Servers locked at Northside Properties and TechSphere." On screen, Harding's monitor froze, flashing, "System locked by judicial order." Back in the office, Maya's composure began to wobble. Her fingers trembled, and color drained from her face. Adrenaline ebbing after the prolonged assault of fear. The medic caught it instantly, checking her pulse. "She's trending toward shock, a blood pressure dipping." Rebecca's features tightened, the mother eclipsing the soldier. The medic guided Maya's breathing, elevating her legs slightly. Rebecca didn't hesitate. "We need an ambulance," she said. Captain Ramirez stepped aside, already on the call with dispatch. The mall's owner, Frederick Jenkins, hurried in next, eyes darting to the cameras outside. "Why are there news vans here?" His gaze swept across the badges and uniforms, face blanching when he recognized Chief Garcia. "Mr. Jenkins," Rebecca said evenly, "your property tolerates profiling as policy. My daughter was injured because of it." Jenkins shifted into corporate triage. "This is a regrettable misunderstanding. Northside honors diversity and inclusion We'll provide compensation for any inconvenience. Rebecca gestured to Maya's bandaged wrists. You call this inconvenience? She was falsely detained, publicly paraded, and harmed. That's an institutional failure, not a clerical error on a claims form. Before Jenkins could answer, Richard Thompson reemerged, voice booming into a phone. He pocketed it and strutted forward, buoyed by connections. Judge Hamilton is a close friend. This has gone far enough. My wife made a simple mistake. All devices recording here must be surrendered to prevent misleading viral narratives. Major Green's smile didn't reach his eyes. Mr. Thompson, attempting to leverage personal relationships during an active investigation can be read as obstruction. As for recordings, duplicates already sit on secure police and military evidence servers outside. The clip of Maya in cuffs rocketed across feeds, watched hundreds of thousands of times. Community leaders arrived in real time, drawn by the surge. Hand-lettered signs sprouted, "Protect our kids," "End profiling, believe the footage." Shoppers split, some joining chants, others grumbling about delays. The divide made visible what had simmered here for years. Inside, medics kept close watch as Maya steadied, breathing slower. Daniels made a last, reckless play. "Colonel Carter, you're obstructing police work. You're under arrest." He stepped forward, cuffs out. The room stilled, every jaw tightening at once. Chief Garcia moved between them, voice quiet as a drawn blade. "Officer Daniels, stand down." Now Daniels blinked, disbelieving the rebuke. "Your badge and your weapon," Garcia said, unblinking. "Effective immediately. You're suspended pending investigation for excessive force, ignoring procedures, and falsifying equipment reports." Daniels sputtered. "You can't." "I can," Garcia replied. "And I just did." Around them, the room almost seemed to exhale, the balance finally decisively shifting. Outside, the protest swelled as clips multiplied. Harding confronted mid-delete. Lindsay's planted phone replayed from multiple angles. Daniel's handcuffs glinting beside Maya's bleeding wrists. The city was watching. Inside, Rebecca squeezed Maya's shoulder. "Breathe. You're safe." Maya nodded, jaw set, a promise to herself that this moment would matter. Daniel stared at the floor, color draining from his face as consequences converged. Chief Garcia extended his hand, waiting. The medic whispered that the ambulance was 2 minutes out. Reporters pressed against the glass. And Maya, still upright, still steady, refused to disappear from the story written about her. Slowly, with visible fury barely contained, Daniels placed his pistol in the chief's open palm, then set his badge beside it. The room's hum dulled to silence. Rebecca's eyes never left him. Around them, evidence screens kept looping, documenting everything he'd dismissed as noise, and everything Maya had endured. The mall owner, sensing disaster growing, tried a pivot. "Perhaps we continue this somewhere private. The media is exactly what's needed," a new voice cut in. Reverend Marcus Johnson of First Baptist arrived with community leaders who'd followed the live streams. "Too many truths die behind closed doors. These incidents vanish when the cameras do," he added. As if on cue, one of the guards who'd first grabbed Maya stepped forward. "I want to make a statement," Jake Miller said, voice unsteady. "We were told to target certain shoppers." He paused, swallowed. "Targeted by race. Urban youth." That wording. Philip Harding sputtered, "Absolute nonsense." But a young employee in Techsphere polos spoke from the doorway. "It's true. We were told to shadow some customers and ignore others. I've kept the emails." Paramedics arrived, brisk and focused, reassessing Maya and prepping for transport. Rebecca stayed at her side, command presence unwavering. "I'll ride with my daughter," Rebecca said evenly. "Major Green, keep collecting statements and secure evidence. Captain Ramirez, coordinate with Chief Garcia to lock relevant records." As Tex eased Maya onto a gurney, Maya reached for her mother's hand. "Mom," she said, voice steady, despite shaking, "this can't end with me. We have to stop it for everyone," she continued. Pride flickered in Rebecca's eyes. "We will," she promised, resolve sharpening. As they prepared to depart, Richard Thompson tried one last power move. "This is absurd. My wife's the real victim. We'll sue for defamation." His thunder dimmed as Chief Garcia approached. "Mr. Thompson," Garcia said, voice flat, "the evidence shows your wife fabricated a claim against a teenager. We're investigating false reporting, potential hate crime enhancements, and misuse of police resources. You should hire criminal counsel, not a PR firm." The crowd parted respectfully as Maya was wheeled toward the ambulance, Rebecca beside her. Behind them, the mall situation kept widening. More witnesses speaking, more discriminatory directives surfacing, consequences rippling outward. What began as one woman's accusation against a Black honors student exposed systems many preferred to ignore. And in the center stood an 18-year-old whose poise under pressure inspired everyone watching it unfold in real time. At Atlanta Memorial Hospital, antiseptic air and fluorescent hum wrapped the curtained bay where doctors assessed Maya's wrists. The ER bustled around them, but inside the partition a taut quiet held. Dr. Denise Williams, a composed middle-aged Black physician, examined the cuts while a nurse photographed everything for documentation. "These lacerations match restraints applied with excessive force, Doctor," Williams dictated calmly. "There's soft tissue damage. Without proper care, scarring is likely." Rebecca stood nearby, outwardly composed by training, inwardly burning at the sight of gauze and blood. Then Dr. Williams glanced at the chart again and paused at Maya's name. "You're the Carter student from Riverside High?" Maya nodded. The doctor's expression warmed. "My daughter competed at the regional science fair. She raved about your solar energy research, said it was the standout recognition, being seen for achievement rather than suspicion, steadied Maya as a detective stepped in to take her statement officially. With remarkable precision, Maya recounted everything: entering tech sphere, the manager's nod to security, the cuffs, the refusal to check cameras. "You noted Daniels said you're kind?" the detective asked gently. Maya repeated the exact phrasing, including the coded digs meant to skate under policy. The recorder blinked. The pen captured every word. A hospital administrator appeared at the curtain, anxious. "Colonel Carter, the lobby's filling with press. Also, Officer Daniels's union representative is demanding a meeting." Rebecca exchanged a glance with the detective. "Give us a moment." When the curtain fell, Rebecca took Maya's uninjured hand. "This is larger than we imagined." "We can still settle quietly," Rebecca said softly. "Protect your privacy." "It would end the spectacle." Maya met her mother's gaze, steady as a metronome. "You taught me change doesn't come from comfort." "How many kids without a special forces mom disappear in rooms like that?" Rebecca exhaled, pride unspooling. "All right," Rebecca said. "We'll do this the right way." While Maya's care continued, Rebecca stepped into the hall and called her commanding officer. "General Baker, the situation escalated. Local media, clear patterns of discrimination. Daniels is suspended. Prior incidents are surfacing." Baker's answer was immediate: authorize full legal support and open an official inquiry. "Treat this as the mistreatment of a military dependent," he said. The classification shifted jurisdiction and resources at once. Back in the bay, Captain Ramirez arrived with a new briefing. "Colonel, preliminary checks suggest this isn't Daniel's first high-force complaint involving a military family. A Marine's son. Sealed outcome. We're pursuing access." Meanwhile, Chief Garcia initiated a department-wide review of complaints tied to Daniels. Patterns emerged where accountability had been shielded by procedure and politics. The union moved quickly, issuing a statement framing the incident as a standard detention politicized by agitators. The spin collided head-on with video that wouldn't stop playing. Back at Northside Mall, fallout accelerated. Owner Frederick Jenkins, reading the room and the feeds, terminated manager Harding after viewing multi-store footage revealing discriminatory watch lists. Lindsay Harper and her husband now faced mounting exposure as additional claimants came forward, three of them military kids who recognized Lindsay's playbook. Electrons raced faster than lawyers. TechSphere's corporate office issued an emergency statement distancing itself from local leadership decisions and promising a nationwide protocol review. Social media magnified the story hourly. Number sign Justice for Maya trended nationally. Public figures amplified it. Outside Riverside High, a student-led protest formed, homemade signs bobbing like buoys. When Maya was finally discharged that evening, bandages stark against her skin, her AP chemistry teacher, Mr. Harrington, waited in the lobby. "Your classmates pooled funds," he said softly. "They bought every component on your list and prepped the test rig. Let her heal. We'll handle setup," they said. The kindness cracked her composure for the first time. Tears gathered, hot and grateful. The next morning, as Maya rested at home, a call came from renowned civil rights attorney Elaine Washington. "I'll represent Maya pro bono," she offered. "This could set precedent on detaining minors and retail profiling." "Your daughter's clarity matters," Rebecca listened, appreciative but deliberate. They already had military legal support. Coordination would be key. When Rebecca mentioned the option of a private settlement to protect Maya, Washington's response was pointed. "Colonel, compensation without reform grinds the next child beneath the same wheel. Your daughter seems to understand that over breakfast," Rebecca relayed the conversation. Maya didn't hesitate. "She's right. If we settle quietly, nothing changes. Lindsay picks another target, Daniels gets his badge back, TechSphere writes better scripts for the same behavior." Maya brushed her bandage. "You keep that John Lewis quote in your office for a reason." Rebecca smiled. "Good trouble, necessary trouble." She leveled with her daughter. "There will be attacks on your character." Attempts to shift blame, muddy facts, Maya nodded. "I know who I am." That afternoon, investigators flagged communications linking Daniels to extremist channels, coded, racially charged messages about keeping neighborhoods safe. The discovery widened the lens, potentially drawing in federal task forces. Northside Mall announced immediate security reforms, mandatory bias training, outside oversight, stricter detention thresholds. TechSphere placed its regional leadership on leave pending review. What surprised everyone was the community surge. 7 more families stepped forward with parallel experiences at the same property. Riverside's principal, initially cautious, issued a strong statement lauding Maya's character and academic excellence. Local businesses taped Justice for Maya placards in windows, forming a visible map of safe spaces. That evening, news trucks still lined the curb as Rebecca and Maya met in their living room with Major Green and Elaine Washington. Strategy notebooks opened across the coffee table, timelines sketched in neat lines. "We file criminal complaints first," Washington said, "then civil actions, targeted, not scattershot. Protect the larger precedent. Preserve every thread," Green added. "We'll lock chain of custody, subpoena internal communications, and sweep prior incident logs for patterns and names." Rebecca outlined messaging: center Maya, center truth, center policy failures, not personalities. Maya listened, absorbing cadence and caution. "We won't make this a spectacle," she said, "but we also won't whisper." Washington nodded. "Transparency is armor. The facts are your best witness, alongside every camera that kept rolling." Overnight, more footage surfaced. Harding coaching staff to watch the ones who don't look like buyers. Lindsay rehearsing her hysterics in a reflection as she pocketed her phone. Comment section split, but the videos were clear. The case was becoming a chapter other cities recognized, uncomfortably, as their own. Morning brought counter-narratives, anonymous accounts painting Maya as mouthy, questioning her grades, casting suspicion on her scholarship offers. The smear attempts fell flat beside a wall of science fair photos, teacher testimonials, and a locked-in GPA. Rebecca's phone buzzed, an invitation to address a town forum on retail bias. "We'll consider it after filings," Washington advised. "Court first, cameras second." Maya nodded, humming the rhythm of lab protocols: process, documentation, replication. We run this like an experiment, she said. Claims, data, analysis. Rebecca squeezed her shoulder. And peer review by a whole city that refuses to unsee the evidence. By midday, Northside Properties announced an external audit led by a former federal monitor. TechSphere's parent corporate pledged to share anonymized detention data with civil rights groups. The school protest grew, students marching from Riverside to the mall with teachers flanking them, chanting for policy, not platitudes. Drums echoed down Peachtree. Meanwhile, 7 additional families gathered at a community center, comparing notes and patterns, forming a support group with legal referrals and counseling resources. Riverside High posted a public endorsement of Maya's integrity. Storefronts across the district taped fresh placards, "Justice for Maya." A map of solidarity spread, block by block, undeniable. Northside Properties is offering a substantial settlement, Major Green reported. 7 figures, policy revisions, and no admission of fault. Attorney Elaine Washington countered evenly. A civil rights suit could establish binding precedent, protecting thousands down the line. Maya listened, weighing both paths. Which choice best prevents this happening to someone without my advantages? The question breathed in the room, older than Maya's years. Narrator voice. Have you ever weighed comfort against courage? Comment 1, if she should accept and heal. 2, if she should fight for reform even when it's harder. Like this if you've witnessed bias, and subscribe to see the coalition forming behind Maya's cause. If you were Colonel Carter, the narration pressed, how far would you go to defend not only your child, but every child facing the same injustice? The turn in our story reveals an uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the most difficult choice is the necessary one, the path that refuses to trade silence for peace. 1 week later, Maya scrolled social feeds at the kitchen table, determination tangled with disbelief. A local headline blared, "Questions surround mall incident. Was it really profiling?" Anonymous quotes smeared her character, implying suspicious behavior. Other outlets parroted the script. "Mom, look!" she called as Rebecca poured coffee, face tightening. Rebecca scanned the piece, her training spotting a pattern immediately. "They're shaping the story," she said, calm but cold. "Classic counter move, muddy the waters, attack credibility." Major Green phoned moments later. The police union retained a crisis firm. Daniel's suspension is under attack. Richard Thompson's ad buys are working the newsroom phones. Pressure wasn't only media. That morning, Rebecca received an unwelcome email. While the Pentagon supports your family matter, high-profile coverage risks tension with local law enforcement. A discreet resolution may be preferable. Translation: powerful stakeholders preferred the story to fade. Rebecca read it twice, jaw set, then closed the laptop deliberately. As Maya readied for school, new nerves surfaced. What if everyone saw those articles? She asked, shifting her backpack to avoid her healing wrists. Rebecca wrapped her daughter in a firm hug. Remember who you are. Your work speaks louder than their whispers, Maya inhaled, squared her shoulders, and nodded. Riverside High mirrored the city's split. Some teachers greeted Maya warmly, others kept cautious distance. After class, mister. Harrington, her AP Chem teacher, pulled her aside. Faculty's divided, he admitted. Some think quieter would have been wiser. Many of us are proud you stood up. Keep your focus. We've got your back, students fractured too. Her close friends formed a protective orbit, but stairs cut the hallway. At lunch, Maya overheard, "My dad says her mom's milking it. Military folks think rules don't apply." The barb stung. That afternoon, a heavier blow. An email from the prestigious Brenner Science Scholarship Committee. The committee was reassessing all applications in light of recent events, thinly veiled code. Brenner had been her ticket to dream programs. That evening, an unmarked envelope arrived at home stuffed with printed screenshots, racist comments, veiled threats, doxing hints. Rebecca's call brought unit security to the door within hours. "Routine intimidation," Captain Ramirez said, installing additional cameras and motion lights. They want fatigue to do what fear can't. Professionally, Rebecca hit headwinds too. Her promotion review was temporarily postponed. In a secure call, General Baker sounded supportive yet careful. Politics complicate this. Some interpret it as anti-police rather than anti-discrimination by the third day of pushback. A local feature aired, The Toll of False Accusations on Officers, centering Daniel's family. A union spokesperson praised his unblemished 20-year record, sidestepping the buried complaints. Lindsay appeared on another channel, tearfully casting herself as collateral damage from an honest mistake gone viral. Corporate lawyers for Northside and TechSphere returned with a sweeter offer: more money, plus a sweeping NDA forbidding public discussion. That same day, conveniently, TechSphere's key footage corrupted where Lindsay planted her phone. Fortunately, Captain Ramirez had secured multiple authenticated backups through military evidence channels minutes after the incident. The most personal cut landed next. Brenner officially deferred Maya's application, citing character review. The timing said the quiet part out loud, yet unexpected allies gathered. 3 of Rebecca's former teammates, now in private security, volunteered to protect the house. Teachers from neighboring schools sent statements of support and lesson resources. Classmates formed a dedicated study circle to keep Maya's grades insulated from chaos. Then the ugliest escalation. Returning from a meeting with attorneys, they found their front door scrawled with slurs and threats in spray paint. The invasion of home shattered any illusion this fight would remain abstract or polite. Maya's voice wavered as they scrubbed the door under porch light. Is this worth it? Maybe we should just take the settlement. Rebecca lowered her sponge, met her daughter's eyes. That's the end point they're engineered for. Good people choosing quiet. They fear what happens when we refuse to disappear. Not fear of us, Rebecca continued, but of what our refusal unlocks for others. After a silence, Maya nodded slowly. Like the quote in your office. Rebecca smiled softly. Good trouble, necessary trouble. Then she added, steady, but this must be your decision. If you want peace, I follow you. Maya looked at her bandages, then at the ghost words still faint on wood. She returned with her laptop, opening a file titled Incidents. Dates, places, descriptions, meticulous logs stretching to elementary school. I've been tracking it for years, she said. If we stop now, this stays hidden. Nothing changes that night. Their decision crystallized. Morning brought an unexpected sight. Veterans from multiple branches stood a quiet watch outside, scrubbing the last stains from the door, organizing shifts. A retired Marine sergeant saluted Rebecca. Word traveled, Colonel. We've got you. It wasn't theater. It was community choosing to show up. Acts of solidarity multiplied. Cafes posted window signs. A law school clinic offered discovery help. 3 victims of Lindsay's prior accusations formed a support circle, filing sworn statements. Rebecca stood in her home office, surrounded by affidavits from veterans describing profiling experiences, patterns connecting dots across states and years. On her screen, a secure chat pulsed with military contacts tracking extremist channel chatter about the case. The doorbell rang. Retired Master Sergeant James Wilson, Rebecca's old comrade, stepped in. The network is live, he said. 17 states collecting comparable cases, 4 former JAGs volunteering, some intel folks quietly contributing tools and time. Across town at Riverside, Maya turned organization into action. Over lunch, she joined a diverse student group, Coalition Against Discrimination, reviewing a spreadsheet of local incidents. 37 cases in 12 months, said Luis Rodriguez, a senior profiled at the same mall. Most people bury it. We built a secure reporting form. Maya scanned entries like a lab data set. We need taxonomy, location, business type, employee directives, outcome, build heat maps. Pattern analysis beats anecdotes. Her clinical framing calmed the room, transforming pain into project. After school, she stepped outside and found an unexpected figure waiting beneath the brick archway, hands twisting. It was Jake Miller, the younger guard who'd helped detain her that day. He stood awkwardly, eyes flicking to passing students. "I've been trying to reach you," he began. "I'm not proud of what I did. I have files, recordings, meeting notes, proof it wasn't a one-off. Policy from the top." Maya studied him, cautious but open. "Why now?" Jake exhaled. "Because watching you walk through that mall in cuffs is stuck in my head, because my little cousin looks like you, and because Harding told us to delete things I didn't. I copied them to a drive. I want to turn it over." Rebecca arrived moments later, having looped back from a briefing. Jake repeated himself steadier. "I'll make a formal statement. Subpoena me if needed." Rebecca nodded once. "Chain of custody matters. You'll give it to Major Green directly, then duplicate to Chief Garcia's evidence unit." Jake swallowed and agreed. No more silence. Back home that evening, the living room became a strategy cell. Washington outlined the litigation roadmap. Criminal filings first, false report, evidence tampering, civil rights violations, then a surgical civil suit, public invite business, discriminatory detention policies, negligent training, deliberate indifference. Green added timelines, preservation orders, and anticipated discovery fights. Rebecca set communications discipline, facts over heat. Maya's integrity front and center, never overpromise. No leaks that jeopardize filings outside, news trucks still idled, lights washing the street. Online, #JusticeForMaya marked a living map. Safe businesses, solidarity vigils, teach-ins on consumer rights. The city was learning in public. At Riverside, faculty allies drafted a statement defending student safety in commercial spaces. Local clergy planned a public forum on retail bias practices. Data volunteers built dashboards from the coalition's reports, rendering hotspots in color bands. Maya stared at the screen, evidence arranged like constellations, each point a person who mattered. By late afternoon, the coalition logged its 38th report. Maya highlighted categories, annotating employee scripts, camera refusal, cuff injuries, NDA pressure. She looked up at the room, classmates, teachers, neighbors, each holding a piece of the work. "We do this carefully," she said. "We do it right, and we don't blink." The bell rang, spilling students toward buses. Under the archway, Jake waited again, no longer hiding. "I brought the drive," he said, lifting a small case. "Everything's on it." Maya nodded, steady. The coalition's spreadsheet glowed on her phone. This wasn't just her story anymore. It was a record, and a reckoning. "I saved something you need," Jake Miller said, pressing a thumb drive into Maya's hand. Full backups of every mall camera from that day, including feeds they never admitted existed. "I pulled it before anyone could lose evidence." He lowered his voice. "There's more you should see. I documented every time management told us to profile shoppers. Emails, recorded briefings, everything," Jake added. Maya studied him. Why help now? His remorse was plain. "Because I watched a kid in cuffs who did nothing wrong. I can't undo that, but I can keep it from repeating." The drive would prove invaluable. When Rebecca delivered the drive to Major Green, his brows climbed as files opened. "This is bigger than we thought," he said, scanning clips of manager Philip Harding directing guards to tail specific customers by appearance alone, and it corroborates accounts from other witnesses coming forward. Same script, different days. Meanwhile, Captain Ramirez pursued Officer Daniels' background. "Colonel, we've uncovered serious links," she reported on a secure call. Daniels' personal email connects to 3 extremist groups. Military intel flagged him previously for remarks about service members of color. The revelation moved the case beyond local misconduct toward a broader security concern. The alliance kept widening. Several TechSphere employees, risking termination, funneled internal memos outlining profiling directives. A corporate insider disclosed similar instructions across multiple locations, contradicting public claims of a one-off. National civil rights groups trained Maya and Rebecca for hostile interviews, then networked them with families nationwide who'd endured comparable incidents. The turning point arrived when General Thomas Baker spoke publicly from the Pentagon. The U.S. military stands against discrimination in all forms, he said. Mistreatment of military dependents due to race is not merely civil, it touches readiness and morale. Without naming Maya, he unmistakably signaled institutional backing and resolve. The impact was immediate. A PD announced comprehensive bias training and policy review. Northside Properties faced restive shareholders alarmed by potential liability and boycotts. Their response, sweeping security reforms, independent oversight, and the termination of vendors implicated in profiling. Local shops adopted safe space designations after staff training and policy pledges. Even Riverside High shifted. The principal, quiet during Maya's first day back, issued a public apology, then amplified her scholarship file with additional endorsements from the entire science department. As support expanded, community healing tentatively began: circles, speakouts, moderated forums, spaces for brutal honesty and careful listening. Facilitated town halls brought neighbors who'd never spoken to one another into the same rooms. Veterans of different backgrounds described fighting for a nation that sometimes failed their families at home. Parents relived the talk with kids, hands visible, receipts ready, composure under suspicion, survival skills they'd prayed their children wouldn't need. Through it all, Maya held steady. On national programs, she redirected spotlight from herself to systems. "This isn't about one store or one officer," she said. "It's about patterns rewarded with shrugs. If we can recognize the pattern, we can rewrite the policy." Calm, precise, impossible to dismiss. As the hearing neared, the alliance tested its strength in daylight. Thousands assembled peacefully outside the courthouse: students, veterans, faith leaders, neighbors in work clothes. Military families came in civilian attire. Hand-lettered signs lifted personal stories into public record. The coalition spanned race, politics, and tax brackets, united by evidence. Speaker after speaker described profiling's ordinary cruelty: bags searched, eyes followed, assumptions automatic. Lindsay Harper and Officer Daniels arrived to a crowd unwilling to be quieted. For perhaps the first time, the pair recognized they weren't a silent majority. They were a documented pattern surrounded by people done whispering. The night before testimony, Rebecca found Maya at the coffee table, highlighting notes. "Nervous?" Rebecca asked, sitting close. Maya thought. "Not about truth," she said, "only whether it shifts anything that matters." Rebecca covered her daughter's hand. "Change starts with days like tomorrow, then demands we keep showing up." "We couldn't predict how far it will ripple," Rebecca added, "but we know what we're aiming at: accountability that survives headlines." By morning, they'd reviewed statements until cadence met conviction. Outside, supporters gathered. Inside, the strategy was simple: facts, chain of custody, and the quiet power of unembellished testimony. The courthouse steps thrummed as cameras framed their walk. Maya's healed but faintly scarred wrists contrasted with her steady posture. Inside, Judge Elaine Peterson scanned the overfull gallery. "This court will maintain order, regardless of attention," she said. Proceedings began, exhibits authenticated, timelines established, every clip cued and logged. The compiled footage played without gaps, Lindsay sliding her phone into her bag, scanning faces, bypassing several white teens, fixing on Maya, then staging the discovery. Analysts verified integrity: no splices, no filters. Defense claims of deepfakes evaporated under forensic testimony and cryptographic hashes linked to the original devices. Medical records followed, lacerations and bruising documented by ER staff. Dr. Denise Williams testified that the handcuff's tightness exceeded standard restraint, indicating punitive application. Daniels watched, jaw set, beside his union attorney. Lindsay dabbed at dry eyes with a monogrammed square. Harding swallowed hard as printed emails approached the bench. Store communications entered evidence: instructions to shadow likely non-buyers, escalate assertively, and minimize camera reviews during detentions. Cross-references matched meeting recordings Jake provided. When Maya took the stand, a settling hush passed through the room. She spoke clearly, no embellishment, no rush, recounting each step from browsing parts to red wrists. At first I was confused, then scared, she said, not just about cuffs, but about realizing achievement can't outpace some people's assumptions. Asked about impact, she said, beyond pain and humiliation, the hardest part was learning how easily systems I trusted, store security, police, could be turned against me. The defense tried to cast her as an agenda-driven activist. It faltered against GPA sheets, science fair judges' letters, teacher testimonials, and her measured replies. Rebecca testified next, soldier's precision braided with a mother's fire. I've risked my life for equality and justice, she said. Seeing my daughter bleeding stateside was a failure of both. Asked if her rank had pressured authorities, Rebecca kept her voice even. My rank mattered only after it was mocked. What should matter is that any parent, without connections, expects due process for their child. The screens replayed everything. Lindsay's planted phone, Harding's cues, Daniel's tightening cuffs while evidence went unchecked. Evidence accumulated like bricks. For 3 days, counsel built the wall. Video, memos, policy manuals, testimony. The gallery stayed wrapped. Each new exhibit echoed earlier truths. Patterns don't vanish under cross-examination, they clarify. By closing arguments, the story required no rhetoric, only the court's obligation to name what it saw. Judge Peterson delivered findings with firm clarity. Officer Mark Daniels is liable for rights violations, excessive force, and dereliction of duty, she said. He is suspended without pay, hire pending completion of mandated bias training and psychological evaluation. She turned to Lindsay. Miss, Harper is guilty of filing a false report and tampering, Miss. Harper, the judge continued, you are sentenced to 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service with organizations serving minority youth and counseling. Addressing Techsphere and Northside properties, she was equally direct. This court finds you civilly liable for discriminatory security practices fostered and maintained by leadership remedies were sweeping. 5 years of court-supervised reforms, independent monitors, transparent data reporting, mandatory training, and a $1 million scholarship fund for underrepresented students in Maya Carter's name. Compensation for identified victims would follow a structured process. The ruling reached beyond individuals to the organizations enabling repeat harm. When the gavel paused, Maya reached for Rebecca's hand. This was never about vengeance. It was about accountability, sturdy enough to outlast headlines. Judge Peterson closed with a broader charge. Discrimination normalizes itself through systems. Today we address not only actions, but structures that protected those actions from scrutiny. The effects radiated outward. A PD installed community oversight on complaint reviews and expanded bias training. Regional retailers voluntarily adopted standardized detention protocols. Review cameras first, document rationale, default to de-escalation. The legislature called hearings. Data finally took center stage. At last, the conversation turned from anecdotes to evidence. Most consequentially, Maya testified before a congressional subcommittee on retail discrimination, describing policies that convert suspicion into process. Draft legislation emerged, clearer detention guidelines, audit trails, penalties for profiling in public accommodation settings. Far from harming Rebecca's career, the controversy refocused it. She was promoted to lead a task force on military family civil rights. 12 months later, Maya stood at a podium in the renovated Northside Mall atrium, now overseen by new management and policies. The first scholarship ceremony for the Maya Carter Foundation filled the space once clouded by humiliation. Students, mentors, and reporters gathered under skylights that no longer felt like spotlights. Real change isn't about punishing one person, Maya told the crowd. It's about redesigning systems so harm can't hide there. She reminded everyone her story wasn't unique, only the response was. Refusing to bury it made the difference. The 10 inaugural scholars waited, futures widening as names were called. Acceptance letters had already arrived. STEM programs, public policy tracks, pre-med, each recipient a rebuke to the assumption that suspicion outruns merit. Maya's own path led to Johns Hopkins for medical research, a dream recentered despite the detour. She thanked teachers, veterans, neighbors, and one young guard who chose truth over silence. The atrium that once echoed with accusation now held applause and possibility. New signage outlined rights and procedures. New staff wore training badges without defensiveness. Rebecca stood off stage, pride quiet and immense. Maya closed. We didn't fix everything, but we proved change is built, document by document, policy by policy, together. Northside's new training playbooks and scenario drills became a national template for retailers. The former security office, where Maya was cuffed, now serves as a youth resource hub, tutoring, rights education, first job coaching. Even some early skeptics shifted, acknowledging how policy, not bias, keeps spaces genuinely safe. Jake Miller, the guard who preserved crucial footage, now leads courses on de-escalation and bias-aware surveillance, teaching security to protect without profiling. Several officers from Officer Daniels's former precinct became reform advocates, helping rewrite detention protocols, auditing stops, and mentoring recruits who will inherit a culture measured by outcomes rather than suspicion. The deepest shift appeared in ordinary moments. Side eyes got called out. Assumptions met questions. Receipts stayed in bags. Teens from every background moved with new confidence, expecting evaluation by conduct, not complexion. Parents noticed checkout lines felt less tense, fewer whispers trailing kids who came only to browse and learn. From the wings, Rebecca watched her daughter command the room, poised, precise, warm. A single unjust moment had sparked a durable movement. The road hurt, but it mattered, not only for Maya, but for those coming next. What would you do in her place? Would you choose comfort or consequence? If this story pushes you to spot and challenge unfair treatment where you live, tap like and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear that one person's refusal to normalize injustice can tilt an entire system. Your voice isn't small, it's the spark that convinces others to act. Thanks for listening to a chapter about courage, dignity, and insisting on what's right, even when silence seems easier. The lesson is plain. Cashing out can quiet headlines but extends harm. Choosing transparency and accountability demands stamina, yet it interrupts cycles designed to outlast the people they wound. Real change asks you to stand firm through smear campaigns, threats, and costs. Prejudice thrives in isolation, but collapses when communities compare notes and shine light together. Individual choices ripple outward. One person's boundary sets a new perimeter. That's how culture shifts, from whispered harm to policies that prevent it. Maya's decision to fight for everyone, not just herself, transformed trauma into blueprint. It also surfaced the double bind many minorities shoulder, serving institutions that don't always serve them equally back. Systems rarely reform by drift. They respond to pressure, documentation, and sunlight applied long after cameras move on. Structures bend when brave people refuse to call discrimination normal and demand accountability up and down the ladder. Justice isn't only about punishing a face, it's redesigning the framework that enabled harm. Tell us about a moment you chose courage over comfort or wished you had. Your story matters. If you've witnessed bias and felt powerless, let this be proof that solidarity scales. Hit like if you believe character should outweigh appearance. Subscribe for more stories that ask hard questions and offer practical tools. We're building a library of receipts, rights, and roots to safer public life. Share this with someone who needs courage to push back where they live. Thanks for being part of a community choosing dignity, respect, and yes, necessary trouble, because one steady voice invites another. And soon a chorus. Keep going, keep watching, keep showing up. We'll meet you in the work. Life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. Sometimes those surprises come as blessings, but other times they come as painful wake-up calls that challenge us to look deeper at ourselves, our communities, and the institutions we trust. The story of Maya Carter, a bright 18-year-old wrongly accused of theft in a suburban Atlanta mall, reminds us that injustice often shows up in ordinary places: a shopping trip, a crowded hallway, a police office tucked behind glass doors. What began as a humiliating and frightening experience for a young woman grew into something far larger: a movement for dignity, accountability, and lasting change. As I reflect on her story, three powerful lessons rise to the surface. Lessons not just for young people, but for all of us, especially those of us with more years behind us than ahead. These lessons ask us to remember what matters most: courage, community, and the determination to make justice real. Courage doesn't always look like soldiers storming a battlefield or firemen running into a burning house. Sometimes courage is far quieter. It looks like an 18-year-old standing straight in handcuffs, refusing to cry in front of people mocking her. It sounds like a young voice saying calmly, "Check the security cameras. I did not steal anything," even when no one wants to listen. When Officer Mark Daniels tightened the metal cuffs on Maya's wrists so hard that they drew blood, she did not shout or thrash. She held her ground with dignity. When the store manager and a well-dressed customer sneered, she didn't crumble. Instead, she told them who her mother was: a colonel in the United States Army, a woman who had spent 2 decades in service to a country that did not always serve her family in return. For those of us who are older, courage often comes in remembering times we stood against unfairness. Maybe it was speaking up at work when a colleague was mistreated. Maybe it was defending a neighbor who couldn't defend themselves. Courage rarely feels convenient. In fact, it often comes at the most difficult times, when we are tired, afraid, or unsure. But courage is never wasted. Maya's calm voice, her unshaken dignity, forced people to stop and notice what was happening. Later, when she testified in court, she didn't embellish or dramatize. She simply told the truth, that no matter how well she behaved, some people saw her as suspicious because of her skin. For older generations who have lived through the civil rights era, Vietnam protests, or even the first years of integration in schools, Maya's story reminds us that courage is not just for the young. It's for all of us. It may not change the world overnight, but it plants a seed that others water and grow. Injustice thrives when victims feel alone. That's why silence is so dangerous. It convinces us that nothing can change, but community shatters that silence. When Maya's mother, Colonel Rebecca Carter, walked into that mall security office, she didn't just bring authority, she brought allies. Within hours, an attorney, military police, and even the police chief himself arrived. What could have been swept under the rug became a public confrontation. Later, when videos of Maya in cuffs spread across social media, the community swelled behind her. Veterans came to stand guard at her family's home when vandals spray painted their front door. Students from her high school organized protests. Local businesses taped "Justice for Maya" signs in their windows. Retired teachers, lawyers, and parents who had never met the Carters offered statements, protection, and resources. The truth is, prejudice often works by isolating its victims. It makes them feel singled out, weak, and voiceless. But once a community says, "We see you and we will not let this happen in the dark," injustice begins to unravel. For those of us over 65, many of us remember a time when neighbors knew each other's names, when we could borrow sugar from next door or share casseroles after a funeral. The world has changed, but community is still our greatest strength. It doesn't require technology, though technology can help. It requires presence, showing up at a rally, bringing food to a grieving family, or simply telling someone, "You are not alone." Maya's story is a call to rebuild that spirit. If a young girl can inspire an entire city to stand together, what could we, as seasoned citizens, accomplish if we decided to show up for the younger generation? What bridges could we build if we leaned into empathy instead of suspicion? When the judge delivered her ruling, Maya and her mother didn't cheer. They didn't celebrate vengeance. They listened as the court held people accountable. Officer Daniels suspended without pay and ordered into training. Lindsay Harper convicted of filing a false report and sentenced to community service. Texsphere and Northside Mall required to pay damages, and create a $1 million scholarship fund in Maya's name. But Rebecca Carter reminded her daughter, this is not about revenge, it's about change. Justice done right is not about ruining lives, it's about repairing systems. The mall that once humiliated Maya now hosts scholarship ceremonies for students of all backgrounds. The security office where she was detained is now a youth resource center, teaching kids their rights and helping them find jobs. Even the guard who once grabbed her arm now teaches others how to de-escalate situations without bias. That is the kind of justice worth fighting for. Justice that transforms, not just punishes. Many of us in older age have seen cycles of anger that burned hot and fizzled out, leaving bitterness but little progress. True change, the kind that lasts, is quieter and slower. It rewrites policies, retrains workers, and reorients culture. It doesn't just stop bad actors, it prevents the next generation from repeating the same harm. Maya's courage and Rebecca's persistence sparked that transformation. And it reminds us that even in our later years, we can still lend our voices to efforts that make life better for those who come after us. Courage, community, transformation. These three lessons are threads in the same fabric. Alone, courage can feel lonely. Without courage, communities can lose their way. Without community, transformation rarely lasts, but when all three come together, the impossible becomes possible. Maya's story is not just about a teenager in Georgia. It's about every one of us who has ever been underestimated, dismissed, or treated unfairly. It's about every parent who has taught their child to keep hands visible during a traffic stop. It's about every grandparent who has told their grandchild to always be respectful but know your rights. For those of us older than 65, Maya's journey echoes struggles we thought were behind us, and it challenges us to leave the world better than we found it. Because the truth is, systems don't change automatically. They change because ordinary people, sometimes young, sometimes old, refuse to let injustice pass as normal. The question is not whether injustice will appear again. The question is whether we will stand together across generations to confront it with courage, rebuild with community, and insist on transformation instead of silence. What about you? Have you ever faced a moment where you had to decide between staying comfortable and speaking up for what was right? Maybe it was at work, in your neighborhood, or even in your own family. Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear how you handled it. And if this message resonated with you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you can join us for more stories that inspire courage, community, and real change.